I count six, Frank.
Yeah.
6.
Okay, do we know if any additional members are going to come or be attending?
Well, I know Miss Erickson said that she would be absent.
Okay.
So we're just waiting on Mr. Sirachi and Mr. Basil. Not sure about them.
In that case, I'm going to start the meeting.
Okay.
We might be waiting all night.
Okay, Frank, give me 1 second. And I'll give you the okay.
Good.
Okay, you're all set.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to the Township of Hillsborough Board of Adjustment meeting for Wednesday, November 4th, 2020. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America,
to the
and to the republic for which it stands,
One
one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
all.
This meeting will be conducted virtually. The public will be given an opportunity to participate remotely through the advertised Zoom link or optional phone number identified in the public meeting notice. The public should use the raise hand feature in Zoom or the *9 if participating by telephone to indicate you would like to be recognized to speak. Application documents were made available for inspection on the Township website at least 10 calendar days prior to the scheduled meeting date in accordance with the meeting notice. All board members, staff, and consultants will be participating remotely. Applicants and their professionals will be presenting remotely and will identify themselves before testifying. This meeting has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, which is called the Sunshine Law. Notice of the 2020 annual meeting schedule has been provided to the officially designated newspapers, the Township Clerk, posted on a bulletin board at the Township Municipal Complex, and posted to the Township's website. Additional notice has been provided to communicate that the meeting is being conducted according to the Governor's executive orders and pursuant to Public Law 2020 C.11, which allows for meetings to be conducted electronically. Tina, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Miss Erickson absent. Mr. Stamler,
Here.
Mr. Sirachi absent. Miss Salili,
Here.
Mr. Valchek,
Here.
Mr. Walmacher,
Here.
Mr. Basil absent. Vice Chairman Haynes,
Here.
Chairman Herbert.
Present. And the professionals? Tina?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Gorman,
Present.
Mr. Anderson,
Present.
Mr. Euro,
Here.
and also on the Zoom call is Fred Kinsler and myself.
Yes, here.
Okay, Fred, would you briefly explain the technology being used tonight for the virtual meeting and how the public will be able to participate?
Sure, we're obviously using the Zoom method, and you'll come into Zoom as an attendee unless you're on the panel. When asked if you could raise your hand, there's a button on the bottom that says raise hand. You'll be promoted to speak. If at that time, could you please state your name and address for the record, and then we'll proceed from there.
Thank you. Consideration of meeting minutes. We have no meeting minutes tonight. Consideration of resolutions. We have one, Christopher and Kirsty Bradley, BA 2004. Board comment? Discussion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Tina, would take a roll call, please?
Yes, Miss Salili, Phil,
Phil, you're on mute again.
Yes.
okay. Mr. Stamler,
Yes.
Mr. Valchek,
Yes.
Miss Haynes,
Yes.
Chairman Herbert.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Board of Adjustment business. Is there any business to be discussed tonight?
Yes, Frank. I have two things for you.
Okay.
One, there should be positive reporting for attendance. I know a lot of us get back to Deborah, let her know that we're attending or not attending. It seems like that's not happening. So can you take that as an action item?
Well, okay, so what do you mean positive attendance?
Positive reporting, either way, whether you're coming or not. You should be telling Deborah whether you're attending this meeting.
Yes, I agree. And she normally sends out a request email to everybody respond back to her.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem to happen every week, so maybe you should take that as an action item.
Okay. And what was the
And my second item, give me a status on the board recommendations from over a year ago.
No change. Okay.
Anything coming close?
I haven't discussed it. Patrick, are you aware of anything?
Nothing new at this time. As far as I know, the board subcommittee is looking at the master plan and looking to re-examine and establishing their goals at this point.
So we're still 0 for 6, right?
Well, I think we have one half anyway with the house burned and the burnt down house.
Well, they're looking at that, changing it because it's not in compliance with the state law.
Okay, let's move on. At this point, I'm going to ask Fred to open the phones, the Zoom lines for business from the floor. This is for matters not on the agenda tonight. If anybody in the public has wants to bring something to our attention.
Or anybody from the public have any issues not on the agenda, please raise your hand. Seeing none, Chairman, I think you can proceed.
Thank you. Okay, Patrick, Jason Scott and Daniel Scott, would you tell us what the current status of that is?
Yeah, so they were supposed to be on for this meeting. They did notice in the paper. Unfortunately, they didn't get their notices out in time to the surrounding 200 people within 200 feet within the 10-day requirement. So we couldn't hear this application this evening. The application will be adjourned with further renotice. And the applicant has submitted an extension, a time of extension to the board through January 31st, 2021 to give us a little bit of time to put them on.
Okay, so they might be heard in January, maybe even December, depending on.
Maybe December, maybe January. We're looking at the dates at this point and what we have on our calendar.
Okay. Second application on the agenda tonight is Timco Family Associates, LPBA 2001. Patrick, bring us up to date on that.
Yeah, so we all know about the Timco application. The board approved 2 parts of this application, one involving the use variance for the 2-family home with the subsequent bulk variances and the subdivision for the 3 lots. The other aspects that had to go forward at that point, which the board had discussion and then it was tabled, involved the use variances on the remaining 2 lots for a single-family home. Applicant's counsel, Frank Linus, is here tonight before us because they're looking to withdraw the remaining items as part of this application and just stick with the subdivision and the variance for the 2-family home. And we'll have a resolution for that probably for next meeting.
Okay, so Mr. Linus want to say something?
Yes, since I'm under the 2-minute warning, I agree with Mr. Gorman. I think he adequately presented the application tonight, which is seeking the board's acceptance of our application to withdraw without prejudice the 3rd part of this application. We need some time to look at the zoning that's surrounding the property. As the board may recall, at the last hearing, it was disclosed that property surrounding the property were taken from the 05 zone and placed in other zones. So we want to take an opportunity to take a look-see to see if we could take advantage of perhaps a rezoning.
Okay.
Frank, I have a quick question. You mentioned you'd
Sure.
like to withdraw the 3rd question or 3rd part. Basically, I think we kind of broke it down to 4. Does your request also request to remove the 4th part of that application?
Well, the part of the application we're seeking withdrawal from is the 2 lots, correct?
The 2 lots, okay.
The 2D variances, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay, do we
Thank
need a
you.
motion to do this?
Yeah, I think it would be a motion to accept, subject to Mr. Anderson's comments.
Mr. Chairman, I concur with Mr. Linus. Motion, second vote would be appropriate.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve the
I'll
request.
second it.
Okay.
Mrs.
Gina, would you
Strong.
please take a vote, roll call?
Okay, Mr. Stamler,
Yes.
Ms. Salili,
Yes.
Mr. Valchek,
Yes.
Mr. Walmacher,
Yes.
Ms. Haynes,
Yes.
Chairman Herbert.
Yes,
All right, thank you very much. Have a good evening, folks.
have a good one.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to move the Robert Drake application up so Mr. Anderson can leave and attend to his own application if that comes up. Okay, so Patrick, would you introduce the Robert E. Drake Jr. file BA 20-08, please?
Yes, the first official application that the board will be hearing tonight is Robert E. Drake Jr., file number BA-20-08, located at block 203.14, lot 35, otherwise known as 10 Frederick Court. The applicant is seeking a C bulk variance relief from the maximum impervious coverage to retain existing improvements on the property and to construct a shed located in the R residential zone district. Time of decision 11/17/20.
Okay, Mark, your input, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've had some degree of communication with the board, as members of the board certainly are aware. I would say that this application is unusual in that there was submitted with the application a fairly extensive memorandum. And a lot of my comments are really directed to that. Before this application starts, I think it's fair and appropriate that I mention a couple of cautions or concerns to the applicant. I've asked the chairman to allow me to put these on the record in the hope that it'll make the application, the presentation of the application, more productive and efficient. Some of these cautions may also apply to other applications this evening, so I hope other applicants, if they're on, will also be listening to them. My first comment or caution is that Mr. Drake, according to the record that I have, has chosen to represent himself, which is of course permitted. As with every applicant who is representing himself, he is obliged to actually take the lead as the attorney and not allow someone else who is not an attorney to act as an attorney. Of course, one thing that an attorney can do, and any party acting as their own attorney can do, is call witnesses, fact witnesses, and expert witnesses, and have them testify. And of course, the applicant is also entitled to testify for himself. The second area I want to touch on is the documentation that the board has been given indicates that the property already exceeds the impervious coverage limit. To receive, and they're asking for an increase beyond that. To receive approval for further increase, an applicant is required to show that the existing exception or excess impervious coverage has sufficient reasons for it to be granted a variance. A variance to some extent kind of retroactively, but it is not sufficient for the applicant simply to focus on what they want to change. An applicant where there's an existing excess in impervious coverage needs to satisfy the board that the existing excess is has sufficient reasons to grant a variance, and then that the further increase also has sufficient reasons to grant a variance. In fairness to the applicant, because I have looked at the memorandum that was submitted, I think I need to put on the record that none of the explanations given in that memorandum are either individually or together a basis for this board to grant a variance. This is certainly not a judgment about the arguments themselves. They may be appropriate in other forums. They are simply not basis for this board to grant a variance. Also, certainly not a judgment on my part about whether the Drake application has good and sufficient reasons for granting the variances, that's up to the board. It is only a comment on the explanations that have been placed in writing before the board in advance. Lastly, I want to touch on the question of what I've referred to in the past as blanket or theoretical variances. Variances are required to be limited to the particular project or proposal that is presented to the board. The board needs to find that a specific proposal meets one or more of the tests to grant a variance. Any variance that is granted has to be limited to a specific proposal, and the board is not allowed to grant a general change even to an individual property. That would effectively be the rezoning of the property. That's a power that's limited to the Board of Adjustment. Members of the board and the applicant, I hope that those things will help guide the application and make things go smoothly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Robert Drake, we're going to have to swear you in, and then you can tell us what you want to do.
Thank you.
Tina, would you swear to witness something?
Yes, Mr. Drake, can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Go ahead, proceed.
Thank you. My name Robert E. Drake, and I am the homeowner here at 10 Frederick Court in Hillsborough. And this application that's presented to the board is to build a shed on my property in storage of typical gardening equipment, the lawn tractor, snow blower, and specifically deck furniture.
Excuse me, Mr. Drake.
Yes.
Mr. Fred Kinsler, IT. When you're ready, if you would like me to present to the group the documents that you sent to the zoning office, I can put that up if that's helpful, and you can walk me through. I can move it along. If you want to do that, you let me know.
In a couple minutes. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Personally, I've been in Hillsborough Township 34 years. I'm at my current property now for 22. A taxpayer on actually 2 properties here in Hillsborough, as well a business owner here in Hillsborough. I am a franchisee in a recruiting services for the local hospitality and restaurants for here in Hillsborough. Passionate about what I do in helping people. My property actually does border the municipal utility authority. There's an easement driveway that extends to the Carriage Hill MUA's pump station. So I just wanted to also introduce my brother, Paul. Paul Drake is a trained professional planner who has helped me with this project and the application. So back in 2017, I did apply for a zoning permit. The application, which was denied at the time on the basis that the shed would exceed maximum impervious coverage for the zone. The application for the bulk variance is to review this issue of the impervious coverage. I want to be able to recognize that my property was built on a cluster lot, which provided permanent open space to Hillsborough Township. We submitted the application, was back on 8/17 of 20. And we utilized my existing survey, which was the underlying document, and the calculations were made together between Paul and myself using certainly a tape measure. As well, we calculated the area for the impervious cover, and it was then entered into the software program, which in turn produced the project plan. So I'd like to introduce Paul Drake. Certainly I as well would be available for any questions, and the PowerPoint slide, Paul has offered to share his screen. If you unless have the application and the project plan, and you can load that either way.
Yeah,
whatever works best.
I mean, the document is fundamentally the same as maybe a few small edits. I'd rather share my screen. It's easier to.
Okay, so why don't we?
Excuse me, Frank, it's John Stamler. I just have a question. Are we here to approve the application for the 18.2 impervious coverage? Or is the application requesting 25%, which they're only really doing the 18.2, right?
We can address that.
Because I think if we cut to the chase, we can make this a little bit simpler, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think your question is, do you really just want the 18.5%? So you want your shed approved?
We can address, yes, yes.
Okay, so why don't we just tackle that, and it could be very simple.
Yeah, I think we could, put a fork in.
Can I share my screen? Is that, am I able to do that?
Do we need to swear Mr. Paul Drake in?
Yes, we do if he's going to testify.
And then I'll allow him to share his screen.
Go ahead. Tina?
Yes. Mr. Drake, yes. Do you solemnly swear testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, yes.
Okay, Mr. Drake, this is Fred Kinsler. You should be made a co-host, so you should see the ability to share your screen at the bottom.
Okay. All right, can you, let's see.
And just for the record, this is Mr. Paul Drake showing his presentation right now before the board, not Mr. Robert Drake.
Yeah, can you see it okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I was going to follow along. I'll try to make this quick. Obviously, we understand what Mr. Anderson just said, and that's certainly appreciate his comments. Just for the record, I am a professional planner. My brother, Robert Drake, is my older brother. We both live in Hillsborough.
And Paul, we could separate there. We could accept the credentials because we know that you're a professional planner.
That's great. Thank you. Well, I want to just go over some of the details of the application. As you know, the application is in the R zone. Under ordinary circumstances, the R zone is a 1 acre zone. However, this project was constructed in 1978 through the R zone provisions for cluster single family residential, which is the minimum requirement for the lot is 20,000 square feet, not 1 acre. The subject property is a conforming lot at 20,292 square feet. It's block 2203.14, lot 35, as already stipulated. We certainly heard what Mr. Anderson said about the request for maximum impervious surface. We can certainly address that, and we'll for that. But I think I just wanted to introduce a couple concepts. This is the zoning map. We're down here in the lower corner of the property. I do teach urban design and planning at Rutgers, and I'm actually talking about cluster subdivisions with my students right now. And it's very evident or very relevant that this is the ordinance for Hillsborough for cluster development. And this project was constructed as a cluster development. I think that's paramount to what we're talking about tonight. And I'm going to try not to belabor the point. But the purpose of this section of this ordinance is to provide a method for developing land to set aside desirable open space, conservation areas, floodplains, school sites, recreation areas, and parks, and that the generation of these areas is brought about by permitting the reduction of a lot size without actually increasing the area of a lot, without increasing the number of lots. That's Hillsborough's ordinance. That's the ordinance we've been ultimately using in Hillsborough for a very long time for cluster developments. Now, when you look at municipal land use law, the proofs in order to demonstrate use for a variance for a C variance, it's very clear in the municipal land use law that we can establish that we need to demonstrate that the shape or specific piece of property or for physical features uniquely affecting the property create a uniqueness for this property where special relief can be granted, either through extraordinary or exceptional situations uniquely affecting a specific piece of property or the structure illegally or lawfully existing thereon. The board then has the authority to grant a relief in the form of a variance for the strict application of that regulation, or we can also demonstrate where in an application or appeal relating to a specific piece of property, the purposes of this act would be advanced by a deviation of the zoning ordinance requirements. Now, I emphasize how important it is to recognize that this is a cluster lot subdivision. It was not a lot that was built under the R zone requirements and is substandard. It's a standard 1 acre, it's a standard 20,000 square foot lot as required by the ordinance. But what we find when we look at the ordinance in town, and again, I'm not trying to interpret, I'm just trying to suggest that in the ordinance itself, it was very clear, and if you can't read this, I submitted this already, this is actually from the municipal ordinance in town, that under the criteria for the R zone, under the CSR standard, the requirement for impervious surface doesn't exist. There is no standard in the ordinance. If you look in the red circle, there's a blank space. In other words, the provision for 15% applies to when the lot is a single family 1 acre lot. However, when you look at it from the municipal ordinance standpoint, the absence of a standard suggests that there is no standard. Now,
Paul, can I interrupt, please? And I
Sure.
apologize, but let's talk about this lot. I don't, and I understand where you're going, at least I think I do. Let's focus on this lot and this application and
I made my point, Tricky. That's fine.
yeah, okay.
I'll move on.
And Paul, yeah, it's John Stamler. It's a good application. We could see the 18, +% that you're requesting, but everything else looks in order, but go ahead.
Okay, so, all right. So just quickly, as you can see, here's an aerial photo of the site. What's really interesting about this property is that the open space components that were part of the cluster actually fit very well into the larger plan for the township. The yellow lot is the lot itself that we're talking about. When you move on to there, you can see how the star now is the same lot. You can see how the contiguousness of all the clustering actually put together some really interesting open space parcels for the township at no expense to the township through cluster development. And that's my point.
Okay.
This is the lot itself at 10 Frederick Court. This is my brother's property. And you can see the parcel in the rear. And you can also see the access drive to the MUA pump station, which is in the back lower right-hand corner.
Well, I have a question about that. The driveway from the house back to the end of the property, is that included in the impervious surface?
That is not. That belongs to Hillsborough Township. That road is a physical road.
Right, but it's in your calculation for coverage. Is that area covered in?
It is not included.
It's not included.
It is not included because it doesn't belong to my brother. It's maintained 100% by Hillsborough Township.
Okay.
It's an
Hi,
easement.
Paul, quick question. I see from the survey or the map we have that the rear of your brother's property, there is a detention basin. That appears to be a fairly unique aspect of your brother's lot, so that
Yes.
that's always what we're looking for, is the uniqueness of a particular lot.
Yes. Okay. Absolutely. No. And he does have a detention basin, and that detention basin was built by Somerset County. It was designed by Somerset County as a regional detention basin. Its purpose is to control the regional flooding impact from the entire development and the upstream watershed.
And that's a benefit to the community, right?
It's a benefit to the community. Absolutely.
And it allows us to increase the impervious without harm to or affecting any possible flooding or anything of that sort.
Absolutely, Chucky.
Okay.
Remember Hurricane Floyd? That detention basin did its job.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. So this is looking from, with Google Earth shot, looking from the street. You can see to the right is the existing driveway that goes into the substation, into the pump station, pump out in the back. My brother's lot and his neighbor's lot actually reduced impervious cover because the actual driveway that was built that provides access to the two adjoining houses, my brother's on the left and the one on the right, share a common driveway. Where if you look on the lower part of this picture, you can see that originally there was a plan to build an existing driveway to service my brother's lot and then a separate lot, but that was foregone. They decided to combine the access drive to the MUA facility and then basically build this curb off, or build off the driveway into my brother's property. So essentially he has a common driveway, which reduces the amount of impervious cover total for two properties and not one. And this is where the proposed shed is proposing to go here, basically right off my brother's driveway, providing access to to the driveway itself. And then this was the plan that was proposed, that is proposed, and the shed itself will conform with the ordinance. It will meet the definition of a shed being less than 200 square feet. It will also meet the setback requirements at 1.5 times the height of the shed. And so there is no issue with the location of the shed. The only issue of discussion is actually the impervious cover calculation. And then what I have is, I don't know if you can see, I'll unhide my slide here. This was the original survey of the property. And then what we did is we looked at, hold on, can you see this? Can you see that picture? This
Yeah,
was
nice tree.
we took the original, we took the original survey
Dashboard
and
got it.
then took that information and interpolated it and made a base map, which we can then go out and correct and make sure the measurements were correct, added the measurements to the plan, and then basically calculated impervious surface based on square footage using a program that I have a computer program for. And ultimately, then it produced this plan, which is the shed, the existing driveway, the existing house, and all the other improvements on the property that exist.
Okay, so you're confident that they're going up to 3711, and that's 18.3.
Yes.
Okay, I know Bob Euro might have a couple of questions about that based on his report, and but they'll let him ask the questions of you.
Thank you.
18.2 or 18.3?
I'm not. What did it say? What did it say there? Oh, I probably have.
18.3 according to the
18.3. Yeah.
Okay.
Bob, you had some questions about that, and as far as your
Sure. Just a couple questions, Mr. Drake. Will the placement of this shed have any impacts to the existing grading or drainage in the area?
Yeah.
Are you proposing any additional landscaping or lighting?
We can certainly landscape around the perimeter. Absolutely. I saw your recommendation. That's a good idea. We agree that we can plant around the perimeter of the shed.
Okay. Is there going to be a foundation? How is the shed going to be situated?
What we show on the plan here, and if you can sort of see the small cross section, is basically going to be on a gravel base. We're going to do a 6-inch crushed stone gravel base, and it'll be basically laid on the surface with a gravel base.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Bob, your report also asked the applicant to provide a grading plan with proposed spot and shot elevations. You still requesting that, or?
Well, I think he's going to require something when he submits his plot plan to the engineering department.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Now recognize there is an existing detention basin in the rear, so all our drainage will drain. We'll show that the drainage will go into the detention basin direction. It won't go away.
I just want to make sure by placing the building, you're not trapping water up against your house or the deck.
Sure. Absolutely.
And just a couple minor spot grades just to tie everything together.
That's fine.
And the applicant can do that himself. He doesn't need a survey to come in, or?
He can work with the building department for that information.
Okay. And
Yes.
okay.
I'm sorry, just to chime in, this is Patrick. So this is the shed that's under 200 square feet. Per the rules that came out about 2 years ago with DCA, this is considered possibly minor work because there's no utilities going to the shed, and the shed's under 200 square feet. So therefore, it will just require a zoning permit.
Not a construction permit?
I believe you don't need a construction permit for, it used to be, but I believe the new rules have changed with DCA.
Okay.
So we go under minor work at this point.
Okay, that's terrific. Thank you.
Okay, and Patrick, in your report, you asked for a condition for an updated survey from a licensed professional. You still need that? Or?
Yeah, I think Mr. Drake has provided that as part of his presentation. It's just that there was no reference on the schematic here, going back to where the information came from about the meets and bounds of the property. But I think you showed one on one of the previous slides. As long as there's been no significant changes to that survey, that would be acceptable.
Yeah, we used it as a base map, and that's certainly how we calculated it.
That's what I figured, but just to check all the bases.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from members of the board? No questions. I'm going to ask for a motion to open public questioning of this witness. Motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Fred, would you open the public line for questions of the witness, please?
Sure. Is there anybody in the public that has a question for this applicant on this application? Please raise your hand. Chairman, seeing none, I think you can proceed.
Okay, and then I'll ask you to open the line again for public comment about the application.
Sure. If anybody on the public has any comments on this application, please raise your hand. Seeing none, you may proceed.
So board discussion?
Frank, it's a good application. I'm going to move to approve this application with the 18.3 impervious.
Okay, do we hear a second?
I'll second that. I think it's somewhat of a unique lot, and this would also correct however the 17% got in there at some point. But again, I second that, John. It's a good application and good presentation, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I second it, Frank.
And
Good.
Paul, we will
Okay.
hold it against you to be brother of Bob there.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so roll call vote, please.
Mr. Chairman, there were two things that were mentioned. I want to make sure I understand whether the Mr. Stamler and Ms. Haynes intend these to be conditions in the resolution. Two things were additional landscaping, which presumably, if required, would be subject to the approval of the planning department, and grading plan, which, if a condition, would presumably be approved by the engineer.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll add, yep, we can add that to the motion.
All right. I believe the record should show that the Mr. Stamler, who made the motion, amended his motion, and Ms. Haynes, who seconded the motion, accepted that.
And I think I forgot again to the motion to close public, so motion to close public.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay, Tina, would you take a vote, please?
Yes. Mr. Stamler,
Yes,
Ms. Salili,
Yes.
Mr. Valchek,
Yes.
Mr. Walmacher,
Yes.
Ms. Haynes,
Yes.
Chairman Herbert.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, go build your shed.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for everybody.
yeah,
Thank you.
take care,
Paul.
guys.
Okay, next application, next and final application, if I can find it, is Norman Mance, file BA 2005. Okay, Patrick, would you introduce that, please?
Next application, Norma Mans, file BA 20-05, located at Block 4, Lot 3.08, otherwise known as 226 Hockenberry Road. Applicant is seeking a C-bulk variance and relief from the maximum impervious coverage to construct a walkway connecting to an in-ground swimming pool. The property is located in the AG Agricultural District. Its application was adjourned originally from our September 16, 2020 meeting with renotice. The renotice has been submitted and accepted by staff and the board attorney. Time of decision is 11/30/20.
Hey, Mr. O'Brien.
Good evening, members.
Chairman, if I may interrupt, I apologize for interrupting. For the reasons that you mentioned before, my partner, Randall Peach, is here. We're going to switch places. I think it makes more sense to do at the beginning of an application than take the chance of putting it in the middle. If you suddenly see somebody appear on your screen who's much better looking than me, you know that it's my partner.
And your personal application is for a shed, was it, or?
It is not. It's a slight addition to living space.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you.
Good evening.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gronick. Let the record show that at 7:39, Mr. Peach took over as the board attorney. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. As Mr. Gorman had indicated, my name is Mike Ogrodnik. I'm an attorney at Savo, Shaw, Gillespie, Ogrodnik, and Fisher in Somerville. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Mance. 226 Hockenberry Road is a single-family ranch home that's been constructed for many years, just near the Hunterdon County border off of Clover Hill. We're here tonight, similar to the last application, seeking a variance in order to make some improvements to the single-family residence, including a swimming pool equipment area, and walkways. No other improvements are proposed, then that includes lighting or landscaping, addressing Mr. Euro's comment. This is a 1.017 acre lot. And of course, we know the AG zone, the agricultural district zone. It's currently improved with the single family dwelling, walkways, and a shed. This is a proposal for an in-ground swimming pool, again, on this pre-existing undersized lot. in the AG zone. It's proposed to house the improvements to be a pool, approximately less than 2,200 square feet of disturbance, with a non-climbable PVC privacy fence around the perimeter as indicated, as Mr. Mielek will go through. This application necessitates a C bulk variance under section 188-99.3 of the Township of Hillsborough Code, where a maximum of 8% impervious is permitted in the AG zone. 15.5% is the existing pre-existing unapproved condition, and we're proposing a 1% increase to 16.5%. We have noticed this application consistent with the municipal land use law, and tonight I have Chris Mielek from Van Cleef Engineering Associates, who's our professional land surveyor and professional planner. And unless there's any legal questions, I would ask that Mr. Mielek be sworn in and provide a brief history of his education and licenses, and allow him to be accepted as a professional expert witness in his field.
Tina, swear him in, please.
Mr. Mielek, can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Is it Christopher Mielek?
Yes, it is.
Proceed.
Thank you. So again, my name is Christopher A. Mielek. I'm a professional land surveyor, professional planner. I'm employed with Van Cleef Engineering as a senior associate. I've been involved with land surveying and land development applications for about 30 years, over 30 years.
And you've appeared before this board many times.
Yes, I have.
Okay, we can accept your qualification.
Thank you. So with respect to this piece of property, there are two unique factors that I'd like to point out. The first point is that the property is located in the AG zone, which requires 10 acres of property. This lot is 1 acre. It's a existing legal dwelling. It's not overly intense with respect to the property. It's got a house, some walkways, a driveway, and a shed.
So Mr. Mielek, this is Fred Kinzer, IT. Do you want me to show the slide that you've sent?
Sure, that would be helpful. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
That's okay.
And Chris, could you describe this and mark this as A1?
Yes. So this is the plan that Van Cleef prepared for this application. It's based on a survey that we did on the property to confirm the boundary lines and topography of the property. The property fronts on Hockenberry Road, and along the southerly border of the property, there is a driveway, a paved driveway that goes back to lot 3.10. That's a flag lot that's basically located behind this property. So in essence, the property really is a kind of a corner lot. There is no immediate adjacent property owner that would be impacted to the south. Hockenberry Road does have drainage improvements within the road. There's catch basins and storm drains in the road. So the runoff from this property naturally drains in a kind of a southeasterly direction toward what would be that intersection of the driveway to 3.10 and Hockenberry Road. And those drainage characteristics really aren't proposed to change with respect to the pool plan. The pool fits nicely in the backyard. That area has a slope of between 3 and 4% that, as I mentioned, does kind of drain diagonally in a southeasterly direction. And that really isn't proposed to change at all with this. The northern end of the pool is proposed to basically meet the existing grade. The pool will be constructed level. So on the south side of the pool, it will be elevated a little bit, and the proposed contour is shown there to show how that sloping will occur. And at the upper end of the pool, there is a spot elevation of 236.2, which will basically be the high point. Any stormwater flowing from from the back of the property, the back corner of the property toward the pool, will be directed around the pool in both directions, and then will basically continue the way it always has through the lawn area, and eventually working its way into the drainage system that is in Hockenberry Road. So from a drainage standpoint, we don't anticipate any substantial changes really with respect to this application.
Excuse me, Chris, it's John Stamler. So are you saying the natural drainage of this property is to the rear of the property or toward the front?
It's toward the front, so it drains from the back. From the perspective that we're looking at it, it drains from the back right corner to the bottom left corner, kind of diagonally, just the way that the hand is paneling through the property.
Okay, toward Hockenberry, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I could see, because I'm looking at the Google map, and you got a good piece of property in the front, so I could see where it could get absorbed.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all nicely graded. It's a good established lawn, so there's plenty of area there for that water to infiltrate into the ground.
How many trees are you removing?
I don't believe there's any trees proposed to be removed. There are a number of trees along the rear of the property, a holly tree, a maple, an oak, and a tulip. They're all proposed to remain. There's a beautiful weeping cherry tree located kind of near where the driveway intersects right there. That's a beautiful weeping cherry tree. That's proposed to remain. So there's really no, that's a nice open area right now, nice open lawn area where the pool is proposed to go.
Right. Chris, Chris, if you know, how did this lot, the impervious, get almost double what's allowed now? Did the house pre-exist the change in zoning back 20, 30 years ago, or what?
Yeah, I believe at the time this house was constructed, the ag zone had a lot area requirement of 3 acres. So even at that point, it was really approved as an undersized lot. And it existed that way all these years. So it's really not so much when we speak in terms of the existing improvements and how they've contributed to the non-conforming condition. I would say it's not so much the existing improvements that have contributed to it as much as the lack of lot area. When you look at the plan and even the photographs that are on the screen now, it's a narrow driveway. The house is set back from the road a little bit, so that adds some impervious cover. It's a ranch, so that's spread out a little bit more on the property. But you can see the house fits nicely on the property. The sidewalks are front and back, really just to access the door, front and back door. And there's an existing shed for lawnmower and tools and so forth. So it's not grossly overdeveloped with impervious cover. It's a typical residential lot, very consistent with the surrounding properties. And it's just unfortunate that the lot area is very small for this zone.
Okay, I have another question. I'm not sure if you can answer it, but was the driveway originally gravel?
I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, the driveway, as I mentioned, it is kind of a long driveway because the house is set back. There is an ample turnaround area, so you have the 2-car garage, and you really need that turnaround area so you don't have to back out of the driveway. Backing out would be a problem. It's a long driveway, but also Hockenberry is a road where vehicles do travel pretty fast because it is a nice straight road, and just the topography of the road it's just kind of fun to drive fast on there, so people tend to do that.
Okay, the reason for my question is, was it, originally gravel was counting as 50%, and then fairly recently it got doubled to 100% impervious, so that would affect your existing calculations.
Based on the condition of the driveway, it looks to me like it's been paved for a long period of time.
Okay.
So as I had mentioned, the two unique factors that I feel that are very applicable here is, number one, the small size of the lot in the zone. So it's not so much the intensity of improvements that's causing the nonconformity, but a lack of lot area. And secondly, the uniqueness of the property, the way it's positioned with respect to the driveway to lot 3.10 and Hockenberry Road, that it really is kind of a corner lot. this pool will have no impact on any adjoining properties, any residential dwellings. The runoff will be directed either toward the driveway and then down to Hockenberry, or directly to Hockenberry and then into the drainage system that's been improved in Hockenberry Road. So it is my opinion that this variance can be granted without a substantial detriment to the public good, and it will not impair the intent or purpose of the zone plan or the zoning ordinance.
Bob, you already have any questions?
Yes, just real quick. Have you had a chance to review my letter?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so just a couple quick things. Item number 1 and 2 are pretty much just comments. B1 and 2 are just comments. Item number 3, if we can just get a construction detail for the fence and the concrete walkway put on the plan.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Item 4 you've addressed. Item 5 you've addressed. Item 6, I believe Mr. Ogrodnik had mentioned, but you're proposing any landscaping or lighting?
There's no landscaping or lighting proposed.
Okay. Item 7, the only thing I would ask, if you look at the zoning table on the right-hand side of your sheet, you're showing the impervious requirement of 30%. That needs to be revised to say 8%.
Yes, that is a typo. We'll correct that.
Okay. And item 8 is just a statement, and item 9 you can disregard. That was an error on my part.
Okay.
Okay, so I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Patrick?
Just said the applicant shown that it's an undersized lot for the zone. I had a quick comment on mine about the possible nonconformities on the site, which have been addressed. No other comments at this time.
Okay, any questions from members of the board? Okay,
What percent impervious are we shooting at? 16.5?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
16.5.
Thank you.
From 15, so they're going up by 1. Okay, we motion to open public.
Motion to open public.
Those in
Second.
favor? Okay, pass. Fred, would you open the line for questions for this witness, please?
Or anybody on the public have a question for this applicant? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, Chairman, you can proceed.
Okay, so Mr. Ogrodnik.
I have no further questions. If there's any questions of the owner, we can introduce him, but I think we covered all of the relevant testimony with Mr. Mielek.
Okay, at that point, I'll open line for the public comment on this application.
Okay, anybody from the public have any comments on this application? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, Chairman, I think you can proceed.
Okay, motion to close public.
Motion to close.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion's passed. Okay, board discussion?
Frank, it's a good application, I feel, with the 16.5% impervious. It has proper drainage, good drainage, and I motion to approve with adding what our engineer suggested with the fence and walkway and any other engineering recommendations.
Oh, here a second.
Second.
Tina, would you take roll call?
All right,
please?
Mr. Wallmarker, did you do the second?
I think 2 of us at the same time, but that's fine. Yep.
Okay, I'll give you the second, Mr. Wallmarker.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Stamler,
Yes.
Ms. Lilly,
Yes.
Mr. Valchek,
Yes.
Mr. Wallmarker,
Yes.
Ms. Haynes,
Yes.
Chairman Herbert.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Good luck.
Thank
application's approved.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a great night, guys.
Thank you too.
Okay, before we adjourn, Patrick, would you just tell us what's coming up in the next month or so?
Yeah, December 2nd, we tentatively have scheduled the Harvesters Church on the agenda. There were some comments made at the last EC meeting that the applicant is working through. If we do not happen to have them on the agenda, then we hope to have at least a few homeowners on the agenda to make everyone's night worthwhile. And then, of course, if nothing works out, we'll give the board advance notice ahead of time, but we still anticipate to have a meeting as our last one of the year on December 2nd.
So we have no November meeting scheduled, right, after this?
No, unless you guys want one.
No, thank you. No, I'll be on the beach.
Patrick, don't ask that question.
But Deborah and I will be in touch in the meantime. Just want to let our staff know we will eventually have someone new in our department in the next few weeks, hopefully. So we'll gradually ease them into the board processes and stuff. We'll make an announcement once everything becomes official. And that's all I really have right now. So thank everyone for their time this evening.
And I would ask anybody, I was having trouble with Civic Clerk and I was corrected today. I actually had the wrong link, and as soon as I got the right link, everything worked fine.
Yeah.
Anybody else using Civic Clerk and able to get into it?
I had problems, but they've gotten, Sarah and Deborah have fixed them, I think.
Yeah, because how it works, board members can see stuff that's coming up that the public can't because they don't want to put it up too soon. So sometimes the documents you want to see are already up there. You can go and take a look at it.
Yeah, so if you haven't tried out your new Civic Clerk recently changed versions, which caught us a little bit off guard. So if you haven't had an opportunity yet, check your password, check to see if you can connect. If you do still have trouble, let us know and we'll do our best to assist you to try to fix it.
Okay, motion and meeting.
Motion in the meeting.
Okay, second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Freddie,
Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.